that is like literally unrecognizable to an ancient African.
You know what I'm saying? It's urban apologetics. You know what I'm saying? Showing black dignity with the gospel.
Yeah, y'all know what it is, man. Scott Lane, the Black Bruce Wayne, aka the real Adam Coleman, hit y'all off with the whole moniker that time. What's happening, my man, Vada? What's going on with you, bro? What's happening?
Nothing much, man. Shouts out to everybody watching. Shouts out to everybody listening. It's your boy Vada, the real MC, host of It's Here Real and Radio, and this is what we doing. I'm excited. What we talking about, Adam? What's going down? What are we doing? We had a really good time talking last time when we were just talking free for all, So
Right. Well, first of all, I owe you an apology. You know what I'm saying? Curtis Jackson, your best friend, is not whack. You know what I'm saying? He's not whack. You know what I'm saying? Like I have to say, I went back and listened to that track. And I'm like, this just bar for bar, he's not my guy. You know what I mean? But you got to give credit where credit is due. Delivery is delivery, punchlines are punchlines. You know what I'm saying? So, objectively speaking, he's less trash than I previously.
Right, he's less trash than I thought. Right. Might be trash, but it ain't the messy trash, the one that get your hands dirty. You know what I'm saying? Right. Yeah, he don't got the trash juice that's dripping all on your stairway. You know what I'm saying? So congratulations, Phil.
He's like clutter. You know what I'm saying? He's like a light clutter. You know what I mean? He's not like
he's a clutter.
He's not dumpster juice. You know? He's cluttering the game, you know what I mean? So we're gonna start out like that, man. How you feeling though, bro? What's going on with you, man?
Man, I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. Just busy, on the podcast and studying tip. But man, I'm doing well. I'm just excited to be chopping it up with my man, Bruce Wayne, in the house.
Oh man, you know what it is, man. It's cool because doing stuff like this is actually, for me, it's like taking a break from all the hardcore studying that we do and the in-depth stuff, philosophy. You know what it is we do on our channels, man. So this is fun right here. This is icing on the cake right here, man. Just having some fun. So we had meant to get to this track that we're about to get into right now. We meant to get into this last time.
Right.
But we ended up just talking about hip hop for like an hour.
Right.
Right. Totally didn't get around to anything that we intended. So we actually go get to some music this time, man. So here's what I got for you. I got this new Nas joint, right?
All right.
Off of the King's Disease 2. And he's got the joint called My Bible. All right. So pretty much is giving his life philosophy on I guess it'd probably be more accurate to say just life lessons that he's learned along the way. And he's conceptualizing it like, this is his Bible, his life lessons, So we're going to kind of key in on that, see what Nas is talking about. Of course, Nas is one of the greatest to ever do it. It is what it is lyrically. So, we're going to look at the lyrical side, as we talked about last time. But one thing I'm definitely interested in is I want to key in on the things that these artists are giving voice to and look at it from a Christian perspective. You know what I'm saying? I think that nowadays, we just don't have enough of that. We don't have enough talk about just real issues that go on in the community. I think MCs are giving voice to some stuff, and we need to look at it from a biblical perspective. So, you got anything to say before we jump in, man, or what you think?
Other than I know we're about to play the record, but with this record, when I listened to it, I did notice the same thing that you said that Nas was saying. He was saying that life's a Bible, which is a really interesting take. I remember, before before I became, wrapped and just overwhelmed, with love for God, I used to say things like that, not really understanding, what the Bible, actually is. And I know we'll get into it more, but it's interesting that he starts off the record by saying, yeah, life's a Bible, chapter 1, and starts rapping, because it's like, it's just an interesting concept, because what he maybe what he's saying on accident, I believe, is that, if my life's the Bible, then what does that mean? Does that mean that I'm the word? So am I now the word of the Lord? So if I'm the word of the Lord, am I the one talking to Jeremiah in Jeremiah chapter 1?
True. Yeah, good point. Right.
And of course, I'm certain he wasn't thinking that deep into it. He was just saying like, look, man, life is deep. This is my life, and this is the truth. You know what I'm saying? And these are the rules that I follow, but the Bible isn't a set of rules to follow. It is the one true God who was loving enough, because he don't got to explain himself to none of us, but he was loving enough to leave us 66 love letters to help us get to know him better. And that helps us live in a way that's best for us. Like it's not a rule book, you know what I'm saying? So I just thought that was an interesting, I just thought that was an interesting concept, but I know we're going to get into it more when we start to play the record.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm gonna play in just a second, but actually, just based off what you just said, I hadn't even thought about it till just now. But I think just as an artist, one thing that artists do, they're constantly pulling from culture. They're constantly pulling from society and using concepts that the audience is going to understand and be able to, relate to, in order to get their message across. And so I think it's interesting that in 2021, you still have artists who are pulling from the biblical tradition, if you will, or just pulling from the Christian culture, or just basically using Christian concepts in order to get their message across. And I think it just kind of attests to the fact that regardless of how things are shifting in society, Christianity is still very present, in the social consciousness, if you will, such that somebody can pull from it and still utilize it to express something what they believe to be meaningful.
That's a great point. And I know we don't intend, I mean, we're just gonna let the Holy Spirit flow however the Holy Spirit lead, and give us scriptures or studies or whatever. But that's a really interesting point, because it reminds me of, I don't know if I got it right here, Jim Warner Wallace's new book that isn't out yet, but praise the Lord, I got it, and I've been reading it.
Excuse me, brother.
Praise the Lord for favor.
All right now. Okay, all right. I like how you just threw that name out there. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just got this signed copy of J. Warner Wallace's book that ahead of release. I just got it laying around. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was reading it. It's somewhere over here. I don't know where it's at. It's somewhere over here.
Oh, okay. But I believe you. Ain't got to prove it to me. I believe you, bro.
Nah, but it's called Person of Interest, and his intention with the book is to demonstrate that Jesus is real, even if we just remove everything from the New Testament. We don't have that. We just have the impacts of Jesus and the impact of the New Testament and all of the places that Jesus ultimately made an impact. And it's a really fascinating, book and research to read and unpack, not just for the Jesus existing argument, that some people still sillily make, but just to have an understanding at how much this person impacted life and impacted so many cultures, and did so quickly. Like in the analogy that you mentioned, like in hip hop culture, people just, there's Christianity, especially in Black culture, like we have the Black church, even people who don't consider themselves Christians, many are like, look, I grew up in church, I grew up in this, I grew up in that. They're familiar with it. So sure, it makes sense to have some sort of analogy or metaphor in a song in one way or another, about the church or about Christianity, about the Bible. And it seems like that's what Nas is doing. But it really reminds me of like the whole point of the book, Person of Interest, because it wasn't just in 2021 or in 1970 with Black culture in America. It's just so many cultures early on who were impacted by this Jesus. Even religions that started, it's like, why they including Jesus? Like, why I can't just make up a religion and not include and just do you, but they include Jesus somehow. So you saying that just reminded me of that.
Yeah, that's dope, man. So hopefully I'll have that kind of favor where I also can have J. Warner Wallace's fingerprinted, autographed copy, you know what I'm saying, in my own possession. So we'll work on that. So let me go ahead and kill this track, man. There's so much, you know how we do, bro. We're gonna be in here for another hour and not get to this joint. Right. We're gonna mess around and like, oh baby, we gotta do this next week. Let me see what's going on with this here, man. We're gonna cue this up. All right.
And your little homie Jungle is a garden to me. No disrespect, Nas. I know we reviewing your record. You a legend. You can take a classic punchline.
Oh, snap.
Dissing you.
Oh, snap. We taking jabs during artist reviews now? Oh, man.
Gotta thank the little homie Nas for that, though.
Hey, hit. We gonna lose like this, man.
Yea, though I walk through the valley of infidels, suckers who adhere to sucker religions, life's the Bible. We living in biblical times. first chapter. This chapter called Men. Given knowledge by the psychotic, the block was college. We don't add it up, then they'll leave us divided. It's sort of like 10 commandments. I'm talking about men and standards. I'm trying to reverse the damage. You boys obsessed with cameras. The debt we was handed. So many move like Judas. Look at the past, it's proven. It's my duty to speak truth to power. I be feeling like it's my fault. Around your enemies, then they call you before you hear about it. Talk to you like it's still love. Keeping your vision clouded. Trying to get cool with guys cause you want them to choose sides. Campaigning with the haters, dismissing truth for lies. Definition of a man, don't fall on the stand. For your soul, the exec let you hold in advance. Don't be discouraged, just go with the plan. Gotta have faith in God's grace over the land. And I pray for the day when they lay down in caves, make their way up out their maze, get their mind up out of days. Too many mamas laying flowers at their graves. Don't rap about death, it's power in what you say. Second chapter.
Okay.
Hey, that's that classic Nas right there, man.
Yeah. Don't rap about death, it's power in what you say.
Yeah, man. Okay. Nas with the bars, man. What you thinking, man? So he talking about his Bible, man. What you got, bro? What you got?
Well, it's well, like you said, he certainly was coming off with bars, that's for sure. He was coming off with bars, but he said some things that I found interesting, about speaking truth to authority, and maybe this is me just being so wrapped up in what God revealed in scripture, but when he talks about speaking truth to authority, it's like I can't help but think about Jesus. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's what he said. I'm trying to remember exactly how he said it, about speaking truth to authority, but that's the thing though. Like when he says, like, yeah, man, like,
he said, I'm going to cut you off. He said, it's my duty to speak truth to power.
Oh, that's right.
I be feeling like it's my fault. It's like, that's kind of what he was. Yeah.
Right. So I think that's a dope line. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's my duty to speak truth to power. You know what I'm saying? And, and I can't help but think about, how Jesus, ultimately did that. And the reason why that sticks out to me is because I'll never forget when I was a non-believer and I knew so little about Jesus, about the Bible. Like, I didn't even know what Christianity was. I didn't know, okay, so he died on a cross for, like, it's absurd how much I didn't know. But the only thing I did know is that it was a scripture somewhere that on some level said turn the other cheek. So therefore I was like, clearly Christianity ain't for me, because I ain't just off that. Clearly it ain't for me, because I ain't turning the other cheek for nothing. Not this dude, and and anytime I hear someone talking about speaking truth to power, whether they're appealing from the Bible or not, I just can't help but think about how bold Jesus is and how wrong my perception was, and how wrong many of our perception is when we hear things like turn the other cheek, because Jesus is by far the boldest and most gangster person to ever walk the face of the earth. Like, Jesus spoke truth to power, earthly power, in ways that, man, none of us would even imagine or dare to think so. And then it's not just, it ain't like, okay, I'm just talking to the president and what they're going to do, give me 40 years in life. Like, no, he's talking to professional killers. Like, these people kill. This is what they do. Right. Like, this is what they do.
And did it well.
They did it and did it well.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And like, just the boldness. So that's the first thing that kind of comes to my mind,
But see, here's the thing though. Here's my thing though, right? With that, like, I feel like today, and maybe this is what he was alluding to, because he said right after that, he feel like it's his fault. I feel like in hip hop, we don't see that speaking truth to power element as often as we used to. You know what I'm saying? Maybe it's just me, but now I we were joking before we went live. Like, I'm gonna be the one that's like, coming off like the old head all the time. I mean, and I'm really not that guy. I'm not trying to hate or anything like that. But when I think about like what I grew up on, in the 80s and 90s, the music that I listened to, whether it be a Public Enemy or whether it be, it could be anybody, X-Clan, or you can name a bunch of different people, there was always this element in hip hop challenging the system. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And speaking out on social issues. I don't think that we see that as often as we do today. I mean, looking at like when we saw everything that was going down in 2020, last year, you know what I'm saying? It's crazy to me that you didn't have like a track where like MCs got together and on like kind of a speaking for the hip hop community type track about what's going on in society. Like that's something that would have happened back in the day, I feel like. But it just seems that, the hip hop in terms of the artists really don't have their ear to the streets of society like they used to, and maybe are just not as vocal about it. You know what I mean?
That's a really good point, and I completely agree. Because even if you got to think, it ain't even about you probably not listening to whoever the current artists are, because I guarantee you, if people didn't listen to hip hop in the early 90s, they still heard of Public Enemy. You know what I'm saying? Because they kicked up dust. They still heard of NWA when they would make certain records, whether it be from the Express Yourself records or when they went F the Police. Regardless, when they're speaking truth to those, to earthly power, it hit people's radar because these are popular artists who were doing that. Even when YG some years ago, when he said F Donald Trump, people who don't listen to YG knew that a dude named YG had a song called F Donald Trump.
Right.
And even though he did that some years ago, his approach wasn't very sophisticated and it wasn't very nuanced, of course.
Or the Eminem joint along the same lines where he did that cypher joint where he had like that verse where he was coming to Donald Trump, kind of same along the same lines.
Yeah, actually, and I know that I'm an Eminem guy, and I'm not trying to big him up in an area that he shouldn't be bigged up on. I'm happy to be corrected if I'm wrong, but the last rapper, at least that it hit my radar, that kind of went out their way to be like sophisticated and saying some real stuff was M. But the thing is, a lot of people trashed it. They said it was whack. It was
bugging though.
But it was
really
on
bugging.
Yeah, I forget because he was talking about white supremacy. He was talking about Section 8 housing, and people was like, "Yo, this is trash." I was like, "Dude,"
bro,
I was like,
that Fantastic Four line, dude, like that run he had, like where he was talking about like you're using the thing and the orange and blah blah blah, like, Cass. I think people really wasn't like listening, but because I think it may have been out of step somewhat for Eminem to kind of be on that, like people wasn't really paying attention. It's like, no, just stick to doing this other stuff, like this battle stuff or whatever. But no, I thought Cass was bugging, man. Like that verse was crazy. You
talking about the verse, and he had a song on his actual album where he was talking about some stuff. That's what I'm referring to. But
my bad.
But at the end of the day, I agree with you. I do think Nas is saying that. I do think Nas is saying that, and I don't think we see artists that are speaking truth to power. Even when the baby, I know he said some controversial things, and he said some things that were vulgar, and maybe I got to listen to it again because I admit I didn't spend a whole lot of time on it. I think I probably watched the clip once, and then everything else I just saw tweets and saying another person canceled him, and every now and then I might see someone in the comments saying, "Hey, this is going a bit too far." But you don't see people rapping about that. People of influence saying, "Hey, we do see that with with comedians. Comedians, they've done a pretty good job of saying, hey, look, as a comic,
for sure,
I'm going to say what I want to say still."
Dave Chappelle, right?
Yeah, Dave Chappelle. Marlon has a new special. I didn't even finish watching it because I couldn't get through it. But he was pushing the envelope. But comedians do that. And once upon a time, recording artists, used to do that.
I think they felt like it was an obligation to some extent. You know what I'm saying? And I don't think that artists today feel that same sense of obligation to the community to speak on these kind of things. I think, matter of fact, it used to be that way, like real rap. Like if you were an African American who had, in one way or the other, whether it be as an actor, musician, athlete, or whatever, if you had somehow gained a platform for yourself, it was kind of like an unwritten rule. It was an understanding that you had an obligation to speak up for the community. And so when it comes to athletes, a lot of people was getting on like LeBron James, for example, last year, or many NBA players, you're like, yo, stay in your lane, like just shut up and dribble, stuff like that. And I think that these people are out of touch with actually those kind of platforms. It's has a long-standing history in the African American context of being spokespersons for the broader community. So really, they were just kind of reclaiming or tapping back into something that's, you know, has been the norm throughout our time here in America. But I want to touch on this, though. You know what I'm saying, before I say a couple other things I want to say about this verse. You know, look how much we just got off one verse, man. All first verse. So, you know, like,
yeah,
like,
and really,
like,
this is
like
one line.
said, you know,
and really, it was one line because
yeah,
I picked out
verse.
one line that stood out to me, you know, and it impacted all this. I'm interested in hearing your thoughts because he said other things in the verse that really supports everything that we're saying, actually, in a certain way. I want to hear what you're about to say before I share my thoughts, though.
Well, yeah. So a couple of things. I'm gonna piggyback on the point you made and go a slightly different direction.
Okay.
But so we're talking about artists today, you know, not really speaking up like that, like they used to.
Right.
But from the community, it's very common to hear the same criticism levied at the church. You know what I'm saying? Like cats feel like, you know, historically, they, you know, maybe they grew up hearing about Dr. King and they understand that by extension, you know, you have this church-centered movement that really was the a core and backbone, if you will, of the civil rights movement. But it's like, man, like, what have y'all done lately? Kind of a deal. Like, you know, where are y'all at now? That's Absolutely. A very common criticism levied at the church. And I think that in some ways, I think it's fair.
Yeah,
you know, I think it's fair. I'm not the guy I'm not the church basher guy. I'm really not. You know what I'm saying? I think that there's a lot of things that I'll just even center it in just the quote unquote black church. Like, I think there's a lot of things that go on positively with the black church, making a significant impact that doesn't get the publicity that it should. And I'm saying that as a social worker that is constantly at work in the community. I know what churches are out here doing, providing food pantries, childcare, clothing. I mean, that's a real thing. But nevertheless, I do think that reclaiming what you described in Christ, like, is that prophetic voice. And by prophetic, I don't mean just like telling the future, but speaking truth to power, like being the voice of God in your generation. You know what I'm saying? In a particular context like that, I think is something that the church needs to reclaim. You know, and the same thing I'm saying about like these athletes kind of reclaiming it. I think that's something that the church needs to really reclaim because I think people want to know, like, yo, what, like, where y'all at? And I do think that the biblical worldview still has something to say about everything that we're seeing going on, from, you know, racism to Afghanistan, you know, things popping off right now. I think the church has something to say about it. The biblical worldview has something to say about it.
Man, that's such an interesting take because unfortunately, when the quote unquote, if you think of someone saying, hey, what does the church have to say about these issues? Because it's ultimately political issues. It's ultimately issues, whether it be Afghanistan, police brutality, poverty in the United States of America. What does the church think? Unfortunately, many of us are going to think, well, what does the Republican Party think? You know, and then we know that the Republican Party has a stigma of being like, well, first of all, it ain't no police brutality. It's whoever got beat up or whoever got killed's fault, you know, that they got beat up or killed, you know. I think that a piece of it is like, so does the church think that? Because the evangelical, the evangelical vote, the Christian vote, you know, is Republican, you know, without a shadow of a doubt. So, and Republicans, I know that there are people who vote or are part of that party, and they'll go, look, no, we care about in poverty, but here's our approach in fixing poverty. We don't think that's the answer. We think this is the answer. And if you listen to them, they'll explain that. However, the perception isn't, oh, we just have a different direction at fixing it. The perception is, nope, tie up your bootstraps and get it. You're poor because because you grew up poor. You got shot by the police because you were disobedient, you know. And unfortunately, I think that when it comes to the church having a voice, it's politicized now, you know. So much so that, you know, if I go, I'm anti-vax or I'm pro-vax, you know, that's gonna more than likely be a politicized thing. I saw a bishop, I forget what it was. He's an artist as well as a pastor, you know, but he said, hey, look, I want my church to be vaccinated if y'all come be part of my church. And personally, I don't got a problem with that. I don't have a problem with someone who is responsible for multiple people to go, here's what I believe is safest for this building that I have this influence over. I don't have a problem with that. But unfortunately, though, when he said that, though, and the church released the statement, that's a politicized statement now. Where if you run your own church, maybe you wouldn't do it that way. Maybe. But unfortunately, that wasn't received by people who are not members, tithers, or anything at that church. You ain't active at that church. Everyone goes, that's a politicized statement, opposed to this is a thoughtful decision that someone made that they believe is safest and healthiest for the people who work there, for the people who serve there, and for the people who attend there. And so I say all that to say, I think you're absolutely right. And I think it's unfortunate that when the church does have a voice, it turns into a politicized voice. It's almost like who you vote for.
No, that's a good take, man. That's a good take. Like it's the church's voice has been co-opted or like just snatched up by these different political factions rather than just being boom. This is where we are based upon where we're coming from as the church. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Now you're absolutely right, because what I think it would take, for some, for the church to be seen and for the church to be speaking truth to power, I think that whether that means you ended up voting Democrat, Republican, or other for whatever reason, that you're still able to say, hey, I rock with this party at this time for this reason, and I'm criticizing the very party that I happen to have voted for this reason. I don't hear enough of that. I don't hear enough.
Man, we don't, bro.
Yeah. So if someone's thing is, hey, look, I disagree with a gang of stuff the Republicans do, but Republicans tend to make abortion, or they express that they want abortion to be less easy, so therefore I rock with them. That's cool if that's your view, but I don't hear enough. I rock with them for this reason, but I can't stand them for this reason. It's usually, just lay out the CVS receipt of their views, and I rock with them for that.
Yeah, right. But like you play basketball. You're a baller, right?
I do.
All right. So you know how it is. Like we playing street ball, and you come down the court, and your boy travel, right? You see it, everybody see it, and but he's the only one that believes he ain't traveled. You know what I mean? So they call him for it. And so what do? He's gonna argue like, nah, man, I ain't traveled. He's going back and forth, and I've seen times where like that argument that could be 5-10 minutes. I'm saying of going back and forth about whether you traveled or not. And then one way or the other, somebody's gonna give in, and you might be like, hey man, come on, man, we get it back next time. So y'all going down the court, and you might have been banging with him, you might have been riding with him, like arguing, but then he might whisper to you on the way back down the court, like, yo, did I travel? Then you be like, yeah, they got you.
You absolutely.
All right, cool. But in the moment, you gonna bang with him because he's on your team. You know what I'm saying? You be like, oh no, y'all some other stuff. You know what I mean? But when you heading back down the court, it's like, oh yeah, they got you. I think that's how people do with politics, man. I think that's what they do. Is like, in public, they're gonna ride for their set. That's what they're gonna do. You know what I'm saying? But they're not going to take the time to say, you know what? Actually, I'm just going to be a person of integrity, and right is right, is wrong is wrong. It is what it is. Like y'all traveling. That's just leave it at that. You
may be right. You may be right. Yeah, I'm of the opinion that that's not the space for that. So if someone happened to vote Democrat and they vote for Biden, I'm not informed enough on the Afghanistan issue and the bombings and whatnot to have a strong opinion on it.
Right.
But just using that as an example, if someone think that our president did not handle that correctly, and you happen to have voted Democrat or voted for his ticket, him and Senator Harris's, now Vice President Harris, ticket, there's nothing wrong with saying I voted for them, I stand by my vote, and I think they're handling this particular situation wrong. I hope they do it this way.
Absolutely.
And I just don't see that on any side. Right. And we need to do that, and especially when it comes from people who are professing Christians,
right? And
they say, okay, here's the party I'm voting for, and I do such a great job at being nuanced. This is why we have a problem with the critical race theory thing, because in every other scenario, I'm able to demonstrate the ability to be nuanced, to be objective, to say, hey, this is good, this is bad. Right, this was cool in the sermon, this was that. We're able to have these skill sets, but we can't do that with whatever party we happen to vote for. We can't do that with whatever senator, president, vice president, or judge that we happen to vote for. We can't say I support this governor, however, I don't support that thing. I mean, in even in the NBA, it's people, those analysts, they know those players, you know, and they can go, KD had a bad game. I still think he's the best player in the NBA, but last night he had a bad, he was right. And the church, we aren't doing that. Professing believers, especially those of us who are in public, we are not doing that. The white ones, the black ones. Go ahead.
But here's what's crazy is I think people are afraid to do it because they feel like they're going to lose something. They're going to lose an argument, or they feel like they're going to have to lower themselves to those to whom they disagree. But in reality, and this to your point, I think that when you show that humility, you actually gain credibility for your position. Right. You see what I'm saying? Like, and to your point, like as Christians, that's what we should be about. We should be people of truth. And if we're sacrificing our integrity on the altar of politics and basically just looking good and not wanting to give ground to those who disagree, if that's what we're sacrificing our integrity on, then I think that we've done a disservice to the church. And coming full circle, that's where the church again gets their voice, you know, basically kidnapped by these different political factions and so forth. We're not being an authentic witness, and I think that's a real problem, man. That's a real problem. So,
you know, I'm really fascinated. I know you said this already a few minutes ago, that you asked me what I thought. I said that there's one particular line that stood out to me. And that's how, but Nas has been that type of lyricist to where, like, we could take something from his first album. This is his most recent one that we're talking about. We could take a line from a random song on his first album, Illmatic, and just talk about it, and that can take us to so many important issues, you know, which is why, because I don't remember how old he was, but I know he was a young man when Illmatic first came out. But this is why when that dropped and it was so dope and it was deep and it was like, yo, you rapping dope and you talking about stuff. And you know, it was like, this dude is going to be the greatest ever. Like, that's why it was, that's why he had that stigma. And it's really fascinating, you know, that he still has that.
This is the beauty of hip hop as a culture. This is the beauty of rap music as a genre, is the ability to take poetry and really provoke thought, and do it in a way that people can vibe with it. On the one hand, like you could just listen to this joint and just vibe, but at the same time, like you said, it can also provoke thought. I remember back, was it Nas's Like, you know what I'm saying, from like 99, you know what I'm saying? Yep. Freedom of jail, clips inserted, a baby's being born, same time the man is murdered, the beginning and end. Like, that's how the song starts. And it's just like, yo, that's crazy. Like, when you just think about that, you know what I mean? Like, that's extremely profound in about 4 to 8 bars. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's crazy. And that's one thing I love about, like, even this song right here. This actually, that was one thing I was going to say. Like, the way that he starts his joint off, he says, let me quote him right. He says, oh man, what do you say? He says, given knowledge by the psychotic, the block was college. We don't add it up, then this issue leave us divided. You know what I mean? Like that, just that line right there, you just really think about it. You know what I'm saying? And I'm looking at it in perspective of the overall song and the concept, you know, basically my Bible life experience being, kind of like just, learning life lessons from it and stuff like that. And now I'm going to get a little theological with it. But on the one hand, I think there's some validity to learning from life experiences. I mean, there really is a theological concept that we call general revelation, right? Yeah. There are certain things that you can glean about God, about reality, just from living life. I mean, just when you look around, you can see and infer that there's really is a God. I mean, looking at creation, so on and so forth. But even in terms of like our moral experience, just living life, we can say, you know what, there really is a right and wrong. There really is, something that I should be living by, and I should be prompted to do the right thing. And I should always be looking for that. Like, that's a real thing, regardless of whether you're a Christian or not. We're just imprinted with the ability to discern right from wrong in some sense or another. So I think that's a valid idea. The notion of looking at your life experiences and gleaning moral lessons from it. I think that's a very valid idea. With that being said, we also are living in what Christians call a fallen world. You know what I'm saying? Like, we all have some level of brokenness individually in our lives. There's, it's like, to put it in common terms, like, nobody's perfect. We say that all the time. You know what I mean? So no individual is perfect. But what happens when you have a bunch of imperfect individuals coming together as a collective? Well, you have a society that's imperfect. You know, so the society, the culture, the neighborhood, like there's imperfection, moral imperfection all around, such that you can't always get accurate lessons about morality from the society around you. You know what I'm saying? It would be like it would be like, let's say you're cheating off of your let's say you're back in school and you're cheating off the person next to you on a test, but that person doesn't know their stuff. So, you know, you can get all the same wrong answers that they get. It's kind of like that when we're looking strictly to one another or to society around us to get answers on moral questions. We're looking at imperfect sources. And so the Bible, this is where we get into what we call special revelation, in that God has revealed himself and revealed his truth through the scriptures, and, you know, having inspired men to write it down and so on and so forth, but then also ultimately through Jesus Christ. He reveals, he gives you that perfect model of what it is that he's looking for. That's what we call special revelation. You know what I'm saying? Theologically speaking. And so I think that general revelation is cool. There's a lot of things you can learn from it, but it has its limitations. And given our fallenness, given that we are not perfect and therefore not perfect sources of information morally, there's a need for us to also appeal to or draw from what God has provided in special revelation, i.e. in the scriptures, and again, ultimately through Jesus Christ. And so that it covers that gap between, you know, going as far as you can with the general revelation, but, you know, then be able to get to where we were created to be. That can only happen through all that comes along with that special revelation. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man, that's heavy stuff. And I know we got to wrap up soon, but I want to say this, and I want to say this though, and it's going back to the same line that you mentioned. You know, when he says, given knowledge by the psychotic, the block was college. And I didn't realize this. I didn't realize this until I got saved and I wanted to change my lifestyle. That you have been given, when you are taught a certain way, that is not an easy thing to just break, you know. So you've been doing something for 20 years, 25 years, 30 years, 40, etc. It's hard to just go, okay, I'm not going to do things this way no more. So when Nas says the block was college, you know, and if for you that's actually being on the block and that's selling dope, or that's getting in fights, or that's going to another neighborhood, pulling up on them and getting down, or pulling up on them and letting that thing spray, or whatever it is, you know, it might not be hard to stop that particular act, but the mindset that makes you think that that is okay is not an easy thing to just refrain from and to stop doing it. You feel me?
Facts,
and with everything that you're saying, like about morality, us living in a fallen world, this is why it's important for us to instill the word of God in our children as early as possible, so that can be the normal. You know, that can be the normal. The will of God is normal. Yes, I understand that my will is going to be contrary to it, but I need to understand this so that I can know that when I want to do something that's opposite of what God said pleases him, I can know what that is and I can address it appropriately, opposed to wait until you grown and you found out that you actually enjoy XYZ. Now it's like, oh, God trying to hold out on me. You know what I'm saying? I like doing this over here. I like it.
Right.
God must not love me. if he want me to stop that, Lord, if you love me, you let me go do fill in the blank. And many of us have that. Many of us have that, have that perspective, you know. So it's really, you know, fascinating when he says, given knowledge by the psychotic, the block was college. That's where I learned. I learned on the block. You know what I'm saying? Like I got big homies and OGs who raised me, and they still can't believe that, or like they'll say they proud when they talk to me, like, yo, Vada, I'm proud of you. But they know, like, this right here is hard. Me getting on here with you and trying to glorify God, that's hard.
Right.
Going over there, that's easy.
That narrow path, man. Yeah.
That right there, that's easy. Oh, what we doing? We getting down. Who said what? What's happening? Like, that's easy. I can do that second nature. You know what I'm saying? I was given knowledge by them. And yes, they crazy. They psychotic. I'm giving knowledge by them. The block was college I graduated from. flying colors. You feel me?
Yeah.
And it's just amazing. You know, it's just that was just something that I took from that line, and even from what you were saying with you talking about us being in a fallen world of morality and whatnot.
That's dope, man. That's dope. Well, hey, man, we got actually 2 more verses. We got to revisit this song, man. There's so much packed into it. We got to do a whole nother podcast and just revisit this joint, because I think there's a lot more from lessons that can be learned. But hey, man, what you got coming up, man? You know, what you got going on this coming week?
Well, just make sure y'all subscribe to the channel. Make sure y'all subscribe to Is He a Real One Radio. You know, we have at least 2 videos a week, sometimes 3. You know, so make sure y'all check that out. You know, whether it be us defending the Trinity in unpopular ways. All right, it's not the same old verses that we always throw out about the Trinity. Because the Lord is triune, he has revealed himself as triune through scripture in several ways. And even if we are covering something that you know already, we are creatures of redundancy. That's how we get really familiar with it. So I still invite you to come on out. We have a lot of content that's been coming out about that. And you also want to check out Real Talk with Big Lil Bro, because Big Lil Bro, you know, a few minutes ago, Adam, you know, I was just talking about, okay, God, I like doing this right here. I like doing whatever this is. You know, for some it might be porn, for some it might be fornication, for some it might be adultery. Like, look, I'm married, I love my spouse, but man, I love my side dishes too. I love them. I love my yams extra sweet.
Oh no,
you know
not the yams, bro. Oh, no.
I like yams, Lord. I like, you know,
not the yams. Stay away from them yams, bro.
Stay away from them yams.
Stay away from them yams,
yo. But we got to talk about it, because there are some people who struggle with it. They want to stop, and it's like, why is it so hard for me to stop? And some people are just living in it, and they need to hear the truth. But these are real things that human beings deal with, but we don't always talk about. So we're gonna talk about it on Real Talk with Big Lil Bro.
Hey, y'all, make sure y'all check that out. Definitely subscribe to Is He a Real One? My man Vada Hedgeman. Appreciate you joining me again, bro. So yeah, be on the lookout, man. Y'all make sure y'all subscribe right here at Tru-ID Apologetics. Y'all know what it is. Love God, love people, take care of the things that God blesses you with. Peace.